the Weekly Show with David J. Maloney. This week, David chats with iconic actress Dee Wallace. And now, here's your host, David J. Maloney.
Welcome, everyone, to The Weekly Show. I'm your host, David J. Maloney. On tonight's show, we've got a really special guest. She cemented her place as film royalty for her roles in some of the most popular cult classic films to ever grace the silver screen, from The Howling to The Hills Have Eyes to Cujo and The Frighteners. And she's worked with some of the greatest directors of her era in that time span, from Wes Craven to Peter Jackson, and last but not least, Steven Spielberg, with whom she will forever be remembered as Elliot's mother in E.T. the Extra Terrestrial. Here to chat about her current work and incredible career is none other than Dee Wallace. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Our featured guest tonight is one of the more prolific actresses in Hollywood. She has over 260 film credits and has worked on countless cult classic films, such as The Howling, The Hills Have Eyes, Cujo, and The Frighteners. She's worked with many of the greatest directors of her era, including Wes Craven, Peter Jackson, and Steven Spielberg, with whom she'll forever be remembered as the wonderful and protective mother to Elliot in Steven Spielberg's E.T. the Extra Terrestrial. Here to chat about her incredible career and current work is none other than actress Dee Wallace. Dee, welcome to the show.
Oh, it's so nice to be here with you.
I've been seeing you on the silver screen or on my TV for most of my life, but I realized
everybody's grown up on me. Yeah.
I realized I don't really know how you got into the business to begin with. If I'm not mistaken, you kind of started off your career as a high school drama teacher, and
Yep.
Was that the moment that made you leap into acting, or was it something else?
No, it was my mom. My mother was a really beautiful actress and did a lot of community theater, and she directed and produced all the religious plays at our church.
Oh, wow.
I started out as baby Jesus and ended up as the Virgin Mary before I left for my fame and fortune. But I remember the exact moment. People from 4 states would come to see my mother at Easter do a 30-minute reading on the resurrection.
Oh, wow.
And I was sitting in the pew and I was looking around, and all of these adult people were weeping. And I thought, oh, I want to do this. I want to move people like my mommy does. But they had started me. I started modeling and acting in little things at the age of 4. We were very poor, and that's one of the ways that we could make extra money, is having cute little blonde Dee that looked like Shirley Temple go out and do things. So I kind of, was born, and whoop, there I am.
That's funny. Well, can you walk us through some of the first years of auditioning? Like, what was your first role you got a call back for, and what do you remember about that moment? I mean, was it Lucas Tanner or something else?
Well, the first major role was in Kansas City, and it was Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf.
Oh, wow.
And of course, I played the younger girl in that. But that was my first real forte into professional work, I guess you would say. I had done a few commercials as the Dell Comic Queen for Dell Comics. So I did a lot of PR with Walt Disney in Kansas City. And I was the Imperial Margarine Princess. I was the first one where the crown popped on her head. I don't know if you remember.
Yeah, I got to go find one of those on eBay now.
So I went to New York, and the first part I landed was Nettie the maid. Oh my God, I can't even remember the name of the movie now. And I got it, The Stepford Wives. And I got it. I was at an office because I needed to find a part-time job to supplement my money, And the director walked by, and he walked by again, and he looked at me and he said, "Are you an actress?" I said, "I am." He said, "You want to be in a movie?" And I went, "I do." And so I was Nettie the maid. I think I had one line, which is "yeah." And but I learned a lot watching all the stars on that set and how a set worked. It was great.
You went on in just a short time to be cast in the cult classic The Hills Have Eyes. How did that role come about? And did you have any inkling you were making something that would have those kinds of legs while you were making it, or did it not feel that way at the time?
You never know. You never know. It's really so much up to the public and the timing when it comes out. So no, and I know a lot of people have the same question about ET. Not at all. I had to audition for The Hills Have Eyes, and how I got the audition was in my acting studio. My teacher, Charles Conrad, produced a scene night and had producers and casting directors come in. And one of the casting directors saw me and was very impressed with the scene I did, which was a highly dramatic scene, and called me in to audition for The Hills Have Eyes, and I got it.
Was Wes Craven in on any of the auditions or no?
Not that I remember. It was all on camera, I believe. And the guy that I did the scene in class with was Carl Weathers.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That is so cool.
There were a lot of people that went on from Charles' class to be really major players. Suzanne Summers, a lot of people.
And I believe it was only like his second film. I mean, what was it like working with him at that time? I mean, did you kind of get a feeling that you were working with somebody whose career was about to take off, or again, like everything else, everybody's just doing the best job they can, and it is what it is?
Yeah, I think it's the latter. When I worked with Wes, he was very quiet, very reserved, very sweet. He was a college professor before he was a director. And I think he was looking at things from a very intellectual and creative point of view. So I just found his demeanor always very balancing in that crazy place that we were. We were shooting in the desert, most of it at night. And I don't know if you know about the desert, but it gets horribly hot during the day and freezing at night. And it was a tough shoot. It was a really, really tough shoot.
You went on to star in The Howling from Joe Dante, another horror film. Had Joe seen you in The Hills Have Eyes? And is that how that helped get that role come about? Or did you have to audition for that one separately too?
I did audition for that. Also, they had seen my body of work. They were very impressed with 10, with Dudley Moore, because she was very vulnerable. The character in 10, Mary Lewis. And so they knew my body of work. I had several movies of the week under my belt by then. And I went in and auditioned and got it. And then Dan Blatt, my beloved producer who I adored, called me and said, "Well, we've got a great cast lined up for you. We just haven't found the guy to play your husband." I said, "Well, what exactly are you looking for?" And he said, "Well, he's got to be really strong and manly and virile, but with kind of a soft vulnerability to him too." And I went, "Oh my God, I'm married to him." Of course, in that 1 second, right after that came to the thought, don't say that, Dee, they'll never hire him. So I said, Dan, I worked with this guy on Chips, Christopher Stone or Smith or some S word. I think he might be really right for this. So they found him and called him in. He auditioned and got it. And so 2 days later, Dan Black calls me and says, so I answer the phone. I say, hello. And he goes, Dee? I'm sorry, I must have called the wrong number. You know that guy that you suggested? We loved him. We hired him. And I was calling him to talk to him. And I went, no, you got the right number, Dan. And there was this long pause. And you hear very quietly, oh,
whoops.
That's funny. That's funny.
I said, look, you only have to get one trailer.
Yeah,
Look at,
there you go.
Look at it from the good, positive point of view.
Yeah. And you acted in that film alongside some of the greatest character actors of their time. I mean, John Carradine, Kevin McCarthy, Slim Pickens, to name a few. Are there any stories from working with those guys that stick out with you?
Oh, if I couldn't find Chris, which was a lot of the time, all I had to do was go to somebody's trailer or go down to the set where all the fires were, the bonfires that we kept going for the camp. And he would be down there trading stories with him, listening, just soaking it in, It was the old boy group and me.
To me, the werewolves in that film are some of the best I think that have ever been put on film. Were they
Absolutely.
Were they as terrifying to you guys, like when you were filming it, as they were to us in the audience?
No. When you're working with him, it's like the guy puts his arm up the head and he says, "Okay, is this a good angle?
Yeah.
Can the camera get?" So your job is to let go of all that as an actor and really move into being in that moment, right? But I'm never scared. I can only speak for myself.
Well,
I was never scared in Cujo with all the 13 dogs jumping at us and growling at us, and they were so well trained. Danny and I were never afraid of him. We couldn't love on him. I just wanted to go over and love on him because I love dogs so much. But you can't, because it breaks the chain of command with the trainer. So you can't really bond with him unless it's that kind of role where you need to be bonded with him.
Well, and one of the reasons why I asked the werewolf question was because I was going to follow up with a question about the dogs in Cujo, because it's my understanding that the exact opposite was the case there, where the dogs were actually so friendly. Did they have to like tape their tails or something to keep them from wagging? Did I read that right somewhere?
Yes, they were trained to go after toys. Okay. And so it was all a big game for them. Even when the trainer would go, dig for your toy, and he'd go, right? It was a big game because they were going after their toy. So they would wag their tails. They kept a couple of shots in the movie that was kind of menacing when the tails wagged. But yeah, we had to tie him down with fish wire.
That's funny.
And we had to really, man, when those dogs were ready, we had to shoot because they would get egg whites and fake blood. And of course, they wanted to lick the egg whites, right? So as soon as they got all that stuff on, they called action. So we had to be like ready, to go. It was a hard shoot. It was by far the toughest thing I've ever done in my life. And it's my favorite film.
Obviously, the next thing I was going to go to was E.T. and you've earned your place forever in the history of American cinema for the role of Mary.
Yeah, it's our Wizard of Oz, for sure it is.
And when did you first meet Spielberg? If I recall, he kind of had you. Did he have you specifically in mind for the role of Mary in that film, or no?
Well, he did, because I had auditioned for him for Used Cars. But Stephen works very, very far ahead. And he knew the role of Mary was out there. And I think he kind of saved me for it. He wanted every adult in the film that was seen before the doctors came in to be vulnerable and childlike. And he thought I had that quality. Everybody thinks I have that quality. So I don't know. It's an interesting juxtaposition I have between my vulnerability and sensitiveness and turning into the killer in the Frighteners.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun for me to play those two opposites.
And what was it like working with I mean, mainly children in the film? I mean, being Henry Thomas, Drew Barrymore, Robert McNaughton.
How was it working with the kids?
Yeah.
Oh, phenomenal. They were all so beyond their years as people and as actors. They were just there and malleable, and it was great for me because I kind of work the same way. I like to work off the cuff. I like not to know what's coming. And Stephen would throw things at all of us, like, okay, Gertie, take a bite of your hamburger and look at Elliot, and then look at E.T. and go, he hates Mexico. So Stephen, a lot of that was Stephen's expertise in knowing how to work with kids too. You can't rehearse them too much because then it gets old. And I'm kind of the same way, truthfully. So he would throw things at me also, and I would throw things at him. The dinner table scene, I wasn't supposed to get up. It wasn't in the script. But when he looked at me and he said he's in Mexico with Sal, oh God, I can feel it right now. I felt the tears starting to come up. And I thought, as Mary, I don't want my kids to see me cry. So I said, excuse me, and got up. And Stephen came over and he said, Dee, why did you get up and leave the table? He was not happy. And I explained to him what had happened. And he looked at me and he turned around and he said, all right, guys, you have 30 minutes. I need you to build me a wall here in the kitchen with a sink with running water. You got 30 minutes. So that he could take me over and pick up me leaving the table, going to the sink, turning into that big close-up where I say he hates Mexico.
Wow.
All just like that. And that's when you find the gold on a set, is when everybody is free enough to follow the truth, right, of what is happening within them as the character.
When was the first time you heard the John Williams score for the film? And what was your
When I saw the movie.
I mean, that was obviously something special. When
you think?
Yeah.
I don't think E.T. would be E.T.
Yeah.
without that score. I mean, every time you hear you go up with the music. It's genius. That score is genius.
When did you first see the film in a theater with an actual audience, and what do you remember about the reactions and everything?
Well, I went over to the Cinerama Dome and bought my own tickets and stood in line for over an hour to go in and see it. The first time I saw it was with a bunch of suits over at Universal. And nobody reacts because they don't know how their boss is going to react, right? So I came home sobbing, and I said to my husband, who was an actor, Christopher Stone, I think my career's over. They hated it. They hated the movie. And he looked at me and he said, come on, we're going to go see it in a theater with people. Oh my God. People were crying, cheering, standing up, hugging each other. It was, I think, the biggest life lesson of acting I ever got. That you can't ever judge anything until you put it before the people who are going to pay for it.
And it's become a rite of passage. Now, a rite of passage movie, there's certain things, even with my son, there's certain movies that, granted, he's not of the generation when that came out, but there are certain movies that, like, every kid as they're growing up and when they hit a certain age should see certain movies. And this is most definitely one of them.
Yeah, like I said, it's our Wizard of Oz.
Yeah.
It's going to be here forever and ever and ever.
That's our show for tonight. Thank you so much for watching. A special thanks to actress Dee Wallace for joining us. Dee will be back again with us next week, so please tune back in. Stay safe, everyone.